You have a grandstand seat here to one of the most momentous events in the history of science. In less than a minute, you will see the most powerful explosion ever witnessed by human eyes.
Well, at least an explosion of knowledge. Welcome to the truth. It's been waiting. With commentary on the news, reviews, and interviews, it's the Libertarian Links webcast.
Yes, an explosion of knowledge. Thank you for joining me on the premiere episode of the Libertarian Links podcast. I've really put a rush on this because there's so much going on that I really wanted to get this whole thing set up, get this whole thing going. And you'll notice in the video we still have some technical glitches going on. It's a little bit jumpy now and again. Don't know what's causing that. I'm going to look into it. But I put a rush on it. I feel an urgency. And that brings me to why I even want to do this anyway. There's a lot happening. And it's happening fast. And it's hard to stay on top of it. And a couple of months ago, we went to Germany. And in Germany, they have a Holocaust memorial. And the memorial is a bunch of stones, giant granite blocks, thousands of different heights stacked. And it's a maze. And as you start walking, you look around and you can see, where you're going, who's with you, what's around. But as you get deeper and deeper in, the blocks get higher and higher, and pretty soon you look around and you're lost. You don't know where you are. The significance of that in the memorial is to demonstrate what it was like living in Germany in the 1930s as Hitler made his rise to power. Things happened so fast, and they escalated so quickly that the people who were there didn't realize what was happening as it was taking place. And by the time they figured it out, they were lost. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know where to go. That's the purpose of that memorial. That's what that memorial is supposed to symbolize. And I feel like today things are happening so quickly, so fast. It's hard to stay on top. And being informed and having the information necessary to make informed decisions is essential and key to being an informed participant in this ongoing experiment of freedom in the United States of America. And that's very difficult to do. And that was my inspiration in the beginning to start the Libertarian Links Facebook page for sharing, was so that there would be a place for people to share stories and talk about things that on the normal Facebook page would probably offend somebody. Well, I'm past that now. I'm past worrying about offense. Things are getting dangerously complicated. And I want to be able to tell my kids in the future that I did everything I could to try to inform the people around me of what was going on and what was taking place, to try to wake up people to the news. And I want to try to have an impact. And that's the motive behind this show. That's the reason I want to do this show. I have a job. I have a family. I have a lot of stuff, hobbies that I like to do. But this is a burning inside of me. It's a passion inside of me to want to share the news that you're not going to get on CNN, that you're not going to get on Fox, that you're only going to get in the alternative media. And the alternative media is hard to sift through. It's hard to sort through. And so hopefully this webcast can be a place where some alternative media, some alternative news, we can go through it together, we can discuss it, we could talk about it. And the companion, this show is really a companion to the Libertarian Links page that I've just started to go along with the show. There'll be news posted on the page, and then we'll go through on this show some of those stories. And without further ado, let's get right down to it. There's still a lot of technical glitches. For example, I was trying to use the iPad to control the PowerPoint show, but I had it working a little bit, but it ain't working now, so I gotta lean back and tick the mouse myself, because I did have an engineer. My plan was to hire an engineer, a producer, to help me with this show, but she's sleeping in the bedroom right now. She's asleep. It's my wife. She didn't want to stay up till whatever time it is now and help me out. Probably could have convinced her to, but anyway, there's a lot going on today, so let's get right down to it. So as you can see, here we go. This is the Facebook page. A lot of you have already clicked on it and liked it. The stories will be listed below. And first story. Syria agrees to allow UN inspectors to access site where alleged chemical weapons were deployed. This is from theblaze.com. Now, I'm sure that you've heard in the mainstream media, there's been a lot of talk about this, the chemical weapons that have been used in Syria. I think it's interesting. Well, first of all, Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, he's not a stupid man. He's been there for a long time. He's been in power for a long time. And why, if he knows, Obama said a while back that there was a red line. And if it was crossed, then there would be consequences. The red line was using chemical weapons. Now, a couple of months ago, there was an alleged chemical weapons attack. It was in the media. We heard about it. Oh, they probably used it. And then it dropped off. We didn't hear about it anymore because they couldn't prove that Assad was the one who used them. It was a good chance that it was the rebels who used the chemical weapons. So here we go. Now there's another attack. It's all over the news. And the inspectors are invited in by Assad in Damascus, Syria. Syrian state media says the government has reached an agreement with the United Nations to allow a UN team of experts to visit the site of last week's alleged chemical weapons attack. The statement also says on Sunday that the two sides working to set a date and time for the visit agreed to locations outside Damascus purportedly hit by the chemical weapons on August 22nd. So put yourself in Assad's shoes. You use chemical weapons. You know that the United States is already saying, you're going to be in trouble if you do this. So you do it, and then you invite the weapons inspectors in to check, to make sure you did it. It's like breaking something that your mom told you not to touch, and then going and grabbing her and say, hey, Mom, look at this. I broke it. You wouldn't do that. It gets better. Snipers target UN weapons inspectors in Syria. What? Reuters. UN chemical weapons inspectors in Syria met and took samples from victims of an apparent poison gas attack after they themselves survived a sniper attack that hit a vehicle in their convoy. Think about this. The government of Syria, the legitimate government, he's a dictator, not a good guy, but he's alleged to have used chemical weapons. He invites UN inspectors in, and then he shoots at them? Does that make any sense? How much sense does that make? Do you really think he would invite in the weapons inspectors and then shoot at them as they're traveling out to the sites to make sure that he's the one that launched those weapons? This doesn't make any sense. So who shot at him? Who were the snipers shooting at the weapons inspectors? Who were they? Well, First, let's talk about these rebels. Okay? Who are the rebels? Here's a good way to figure it out. You know who this guy is? You seen him around? Eric Haroon. He's ex-military, U.S. military. But he wanted to fight in Syria. He wanted to fight with the rebels. So he goes to Syria, right? And while he's there, he's fighting with the rebels. And it turns out that the rebels are Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda affiliated groups. So these rebels we're talking about in Syria fighting against the Syrian government are Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda affiliated groups. All right? So we know this because Haroon, when he comes back to the United States, he realized it when he was over there, right? He fights with them. He comes back to the United States and he gets arrested. Once he touches down, he goes to the FBI to clear it up. He says, I didn't know they were Al-Qaeda. I thought they were rebels. So I went and fought with them. Comes back to the US, turns himself in, he gets arrested. And look at what it says here. In a federal court on Monday, this is the gist of it here. Mr. Haroon, 30, who is accused of firing rocket-propelled grenade while fighting alongside a designated terrorist group, might ultimately face charges carrying a maximum sentence of 30 years, a minimum sentence of 30 years and a maximum of the death penalty. So he's in Syria fighting with these rebels, comes home, says, I'm sorry I didn't realize they were Al-Qaeda, gets arrested, and now he's facing the death penalty. These are the people, these are the rebels that are fighting the Syrian government. These are the rebels, okay, that are saying Bashar al-Assad and his forces launched chemical weapons. These are the rebels that the inspectors were going to check to see if they had been attacked or not. Okay? So, let's just think about Al-Qaeda for a second. Let's think about these terrorist groups. Would you put it past them to use chemical weapons on innocent people to frame Bashar al-Assad for the attack? So that the United States will then get involved and then take out the legitimate government of Syria? So that Al-Qaeda can move in and take over, so that the rebels can move in and take over? John Kerry says, Syria's use of chemical weapons, undeniable. John McShane. I voted for him in 2008. I did. John McShane and Lindsey Graham, a pair of Republican defense hawks, said Sunday that the conflict presents a direct risk to American allies in the Middle East, especially if chemical weapons are handed off to dangerous operatives in the region. Do you understand what we're talking about here? We're talking about terrorists at war with a government, with the Syrian government. And we're talking about going in and defending them. We're talking about going in and we've just moved carriers to the region. We've been providing them. Here's the next one. This goes back to Benghazi. Let's see. Benghazi was about 400 surface-to-air missiles stolen by some very ugly people. DiGenova. Former U.S. Attorney Joe DiGenova, who now represents one of the Benghazi whistleblowers, broke this. He's a former U.S. attorney who is representing a whistleblower from Benghazi. He's saying that the whistleblower is saying that that there were 400 surface-to-air missiles stolen during the Benghazi attack. Why? What would we be doing there? Well, there's a lot of theories that say that the CIA was operating out of Benghazi to move weapons through Turkey to Syria to arm the Syrian rebels who are Al-Qaeda, who are Al-Qaeda affiliated groups. Can you connect these dots with me? A soldier, a U.S. soldier, wants to fight for a good cause. He wants to fight a freedom fighter. Goes to Syria, begins fighting with the rebels, realizes they're Al-Qaeda, comes home, turns himself into the FBI. He gets arrested. Now he's facing the death sentence for affiliating with a known terrorist group. These are the rebels. And boom, Obama to move forward with plan to arm Syrian rebels. CNN. That's mainstream. They won't say that who the rebels are. They just say Syrian rebels. We know who they are. We know who they are. We know what their plan is. I don't know how they can get away with this. I don't know how we've become so blind and so dumbed down that they can get away with this. All of the evidence is right there in front of us. It's all there. And Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter. John McCain feels the same way. They all want to go into Syria. They're all looking for a reason to step in there and take out al-Assad. Assad and his government. Why? That brings us to our next story on Libertarian Links. Evidence the U.S. bribed Muslim Brotherhood officials. What? Now this story comes out of Egypt. And I don't know, you probably remember, you probably know about the Arab Spring. Some people referred to it, Michael Savage called it the Arab Winter. When across the Arab world, there were revolts, there were protests, there were coups, overthrows of governments. And Libya was one of those countries. And Egypt was another one of those countries. Egypt is a little more... When Obama took office, Libya, Egypt, Syria, they were all stable. All stable countries. None of this was going on. Egypt in particular is important because they've been able to keep the peace for 30 years with Israel. They've been a strong ally of ours in the Middle East. They've kept the Suez Canal open for trade, for oil to move through. Anyway, we turned on Mubarak. He was a dictator. These guys are dictators. We have to understand that some place, not everywhere is like the United States. Not everywhere can survive, and we may not even be able to survive anymore in the kind of political environment we have with the elections and democracy. But some places can't function that way. But in Egypt, they wanted democracy, and we supported the overthrow of Mubarak. Well, we also supported the Muslim Brotherhood as they moved into power. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood under Mohammed Morsi, they won an election. And I'm just kind of going over the brief history. You probably already know this. Mohammed Morsi won a election fair and square. He ran as a centrist. He was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. And he ran as a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. But he said he would be a centrist. But immediately upon taking power, the things that he did were not centrist. They were the opposite. He became an Islamist. Well, he always was. He just pretended he wasn't. And he began removing a lot of the freedoms the Egyptians had enjoyed even under Mubarak. For example, he suspended the Constitution. He dissolved the court, the Supreme Court. He installed Sharia law. He began dismantling the military. He was consolidating power for himself. The Egyptian people saw it. They knew what was happening. And for months, they complained. For months, they tried to get help. And eventually, they were tired of it. They went to the military for help. On July 4th, 2013, this year, they deposed Morsi. They got the military to go in and arrest him and remove him from power. And I remember that day. I remember listening to Michael Savage, and he said, today, on our Independence Day, the Egyptians are freer than we are. They're freer than we are. They deposed their dictator. They got rid of him. Well, anyway, after he moved out, all of the buildings and offices that were previously inhabited by Muslim Brotherhood members of government were now inhabited by the military. The military took them over, became a military government in the meantime, and they found this document. Now, this document is very important. What is it? This document details a list of people who are Muslim Brotherhood and the amount they were paid in bribes from the United States government. Mohammed Badieh, General Guide of the Muslim Brotherhood. Kaharet al-Shattar, Deputy Leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. Mohammed Beltagi, Deputy Head of the Freedom and Justice Party of the Muslim Brotherhood. Abu El-Ahmadi, Head of the Wasat Party, and Essam Sultan, Deputy Head of the Wasat Party, which are Muslim Brotherhood affiliated. As translated, they were given monthly gifts listed in payment of $750,000 to $850,000 US dollars. These guys, the rest you could see got $600,000, $500,000, $600,000, $300,000 dollars, tax-free, handed to them from our government. Bribes. Now, how do we know about this? Where is this? Why isn't this on CNN or Fox tonight? Why haven't we heard about this? Well, there's a guy, his name's Walid Shobat, and that's what I just read, the names of the people and the amounts. He is a former Muslim Brotherhood and PLO member. He became a Christian and he left terrorism. And now he's an activist. He was listening to Egyptian television and he heard, that's a little further on, he heard someone mention it. Well, anyway, what's the connection between the United States and the Muslim Brotherhood? That's what this is here. Well, this is Obama's brother, Malik. President Obama's allegiance to the Muslim Brotherhood and to the cause of Islamization as a whole is very obvious. It is also disturbing that the United States president clearly places such loyalty ahead of interests of the nation. Blah, blah, blah. It becomes less of a mystery, however, when one realizes that the president has a direct family tie to the Muslim Brotherhood. His half-brother Malik Obama, at least indirectly, is a member of the organization. And that is... his brother Malik is the head of a thing called the Islamic Dawah Organization in Khartoum, Sudan. Now, we know Sudan is a terrible place. They've been struggling with a crippling civil war in South Sudan, separated, just declared independence and separated just a few years ago. But there is a Christian genocide going on in Sudan. And the IDO was created by the Sudanese government, which is considered by the U.S. State Department as a terrorist state. Sudan is a terrorist state, considered by the U.S. government. This places Malik Obama in bed with terrorists and working as an official within a terrorist state. This is Obama's half-brother. Egyptian official ties Obama's half-brother to Muslim Brotherhood. While the Egyptian government and mainstream media reported on the role of Barack Obama's half-brother and his ties with the Muslim Brotherhood, Walid Shobat on Monday, pointed out that the connections are now coming clear on why President Obama has been soft on Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood's reign of terror in Egypt. There's been a genocide in Egypt, too. Christians being attacked. Shobat stated that in one of the reports he did in the past, he showed that Malik, as a member of the Islamist Dawa organization, an arm of the Sudanese government, which is led by President Omar al-Bashir, who himself is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. For that reason, Shobat said that former Chancellor of the Constitutional... this is it. This is where he heard it. It was the former Chancellor of the Constitutional Court of Egypt and current advisor, Tahani al-Jabali. She stated that the reason the United States cannot fight international organizations of the Muslim Brotherhood is because the brother of U.S. President Barack Obama is the architect of the investments of the International Organization of the Muslim Brotherhood. So, Obama's brother is being implicated by the Chancellor of the Constitutional Court of Egypt and current advisor, Tahani al-Jabali. Obama's brother also has a charity here in the United States, which for 2 years was not tax exempt. Lois Lerner, the same woman who made it almost impossible for conservative groups like the Tea Party and any patriot group to get tax exempt status in the 2012 political and before the election, approved exemption for Obama's brother's charity. But not only did she approve it, she retroactively applied it for the 2 years that he was operating illegally in the United States with this charity. That's crazy. That is crazy. So Barack Obama's brother, a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, now affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood, is the head of he works in Sudan for the government, which is considered a terrorist government in the United States. Also has a charity in the United States, which operated illegally for 3 years, 3 years. Lois Lerner retroactively applies tax-exempt status to him. And Egypt is saying it's no wonder that Barack Obama isn't fighting the Muslim Brotherhood. It's no wonder that they've paid these bribes to the Muslim Brotherhood. It's no wonder that they're supporting these people who are killing Christians, who are doing these horrible things, because Barack Obama is Muslim Brotherhood. He's connected. He's so connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. He can't fight it. He's so close to it. And if you look at the Middle East, if you look at what's been going on, I just went past 2 important stories about Christians being killed in Egypt. Egyptian village Christian shops marked ahead of church attack. 3 nuns paraded like prisoners of war. 58 churches and properties attacked in Egypt. These are Muslim Brotherhood people doing this in Egypt. They burned churches with them, and with them my childhood. Commentary. And who's standing between them? Who's standing between the Muslim Brotherhood, supported by Barack Obama and by our government? Who's standing between the Christians and the innocent people being killed by these extremists? Who's standing between them? Egyptian military does no wrong in the eyes of weary citizens. The Egyptian military that stepped in at the unction of the people and removed Morsi from government. The Egyptian military vowed to help Christians rebuild. They're protecting people. So Obama says, secretly suspended military aid to Egypt. Patrick Leahy. They've been saying, we're not going to call it a coup. We're going to discuss whether or not we're going to cut off aid, because under our laws, not that they matter anymore, but you can't continue giving aid to a country that has suffered a coup. Makes sense. But there's a special circumstance in Egypt. This guy was a dictator. This guy is Muslim Brotherhood. This guy is an extremist. This guy is Hitler in 1932. And the Muslim Brotherhood worked with the Nazis. Look it up. Do your history. Check it out. Patrick Leahy came out and accidentally, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to say anything. Obama suspended military aid to Egypt secretly. So the Egyptian military that's been our ally for 30 years, the Egyptian military that still maintains a close connection with Israel, the military that's standing between Christians and death and persecution at the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood, the military that removed a dictator, is now getting their funds cut off secretly by our president. What do you say to that? These countries, with the exception of Sudan, were all stable in 2008. They were all stable. Now, they're a mess. Benghazi, in Libya, Egypt, Syria. What's going on? What is going on? Why are we supporting the toppling of stable governments? In Syria, a lot of people love Assad. A lot of people hate him. But a lot of people loved him because he kept stability. Now it's a mess. Now it's a disaster. Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda affiliated groups are trying to take over the country. The same has happened in Libya. The same has happened in Egypt. Think about this. Omar Gaddafi was in Libya. After September 11th, 2001, he didn't want anything to do with terror. He didn't want anything to do. I can't tell if you can see those maps. That ain't good. I have to think about that. He didn't want anything to do with these groups, and he began to help the United States to ferret them out. These governments hate extremists. They can't stand them because they know what they'll do if they come to power. They know what these extremists are about, and they fight against them. They don't let them exist. They don't let them get power. And as we support the toppling of governments, which we did in Libya, which we did in Egypt, what has happened? Bad things for the United States. Bad things for the people. Islamists take over. And we're doing the same thing now in Syria. Our government ready to move in. Ready to take over. Ready to topple the government again. Because it's an undeniable chemical attack. We need to go over there and topple the government. Boots on the ground. John Kerry and John McShane. Think about that. Do some research about it on your own. Look up this stuff. See if everything I've said is true. See how you feel about it. Something's not right. Something's very wrong. You don't have to agree with my assessment of it, but you know something's not right. You know something is very, very wrong with this. Do your own research. Post a comment. Let me know. What do you find? Moving on. Next story. Is Windows 8 a Trojan horse for the NSA? The German government thinks so. Come on. Come on. The government's not spying on us. Obama told us that they weren't. I thought this was pretty cool. Now, sometimes I'll mention your comments on this show that you put in the groups and on the page. I'm going to leave the name off of this one because I don't know who wants to be named and who doesn't. But somebody said on one of the pages, will the NSA still use the excuse of looking for terrorists when they try to explain why they bugged the video conferencing system of the United Nations headquarters in New York? You can find this story on the Libertarian Links in the Libertarian Links group. It's a TechCrunch story about the UN headquarters being bugged. Can you believe? You can't make this stuff up. You can't. It's like the Snowden death switch story. I'm not covering that today because that was a little bit back, but Edward Snowden has a death switch so that if something happens to him and he can't, he dies or becomes incapacitated or the government tries to take him out, it's a doomsday scenario. All of this stuff gets released that will be extremely damaging to the U.S. government. Anyway, man, I really got to fix the light on that thing. I think it's when I move back or whatever. Maybe it's the small ones. Anyway, Windows 8, a Trojan horse, the German government says. President Obama said on Jay Leno, there's no spying on Americans. We don't have a domestic spy program. We do have some mechanisms that we can track a phone number or an email address if we know that is connected to some sort of terrorist threat. Right? Did you see that? I saw that. It's amazing, this guy, what he gets away with and what he can say. I was at work the other day. I was talking to one of my employees, and I mentioned, did you see Obama on Leno the other night? He looked at me. He goes, why was he on Leno? This is a kid I'm talking about, 18-year-old kid. Why was he on Leno? President goes on Jay Leno? It's not campaign season. That's something they do in campaign season. Even this 18-year-old kid realized this is weird to have Obama going on Jay Leno. And he says there's no spying on Americans. But, is it coming through? There we go. NSA collected thousands of domestic communications. The National Security Agency declassified the secret court opinions Wednesday, showing how one of its surveillance programs scooped up as many as 56,000 emails and other communications by Americans not connected to terrorism. Not connected to terrorism. So Obama goes on Leno and says, we're not spying. We're not spying on my Obama impression. We're not spying on America. That's not really Obama. What was we're not spying on Americans. No. Well, whatever. They got the ears. I can't do a good Obama impression. But he says he's not spying. He's such a liar. Is anyone ever going to call him out as a liar? Is the media ever going to realize that almost everything that comes out of his mouth is more garbage? Man, I can't take it. That's the last story. Man, that went by fast. Anyway. We need to be informed. People who aren't informed, that's why Obama gets away with lying. Because people aren't paying attention.